When I first heard about Parasite Eve, I was certainly curious. A cross between Final Fantasy and Resident Evil, you say? Released in Squaresoft's Golden Age? Sign me the fuck up. Having recently played the excellent Resident Evil 2 remake, I thought what better of a time to look at a game released and set in the same time frame. You'll often hear in trivia that Hironobu Sakaguchi wrote a draft of Final Fantasy VII with a detective story set in modern day New York. While we can only ponder at what could have been, Sakaguchi eventually got his wish as the concept laid the bedrock for Parasite Eve. Its connection to Final Fantasy VII can be seen when comparing the characters Aya, Cloud, Daniel and Barrett. Released between Final Fantasy VII and VIII, and written as a sequel to the 1995 book of the same name, Parasite Eve is almost a time capsule of the late 90s. Given nostalgia is my preferred way to deal with the tyranny of modern life, this certainly isn't a bad thing. So in this retrospective analysis, I'll be going through the story and interjecting when I have some hilarious commentary, so there'll be spoilers. Yeah, the opening movie is pretty awesome. Obviously the CG is showing its age, but the music is fantastic and there are explosions, drifties, explosions, the Statue of Liberty fucking crying, and more explosions. To add to the epicness, a bunch of very deep sounding words appear. Resonance, fusion, selection, conception, liberation, and evolution. The names of the chapters in the game. The story kicks off on Christmas Eve, 1997 in New York. Just saying, Parasite Eve, Christmas Eve, coincidence? I think not. Our protagonist, New York Police Department rookie Aya Brea, is taking her boyfriend on a date to the opera. But this is no ordinary play. Did you say that? She kept singing even though her mouth was shut. Talk about weird. What? The burning people? They got off easy. I've seen a woman's glare generate small black holes before. Aya does the opposite of what any sane person would do and goes towards the thing that just incinerated hundreds of people. She then confronts the actress, and after the first fight in the game, we follow her backstage. The game doesn't pull punches, showing another gruesome scene where a rat transforms into a monster. Exploring backstage, we find the diary of actress Melissa Pierce. She was apparently obsessed with getting the lead part in the opera, even saying she would sell her soul to the devil to get the part, a subtle metaphor. It also mentions Melissa occasionally losing consciousness, needing immunosuppressants, and that her rival for the lead part in the play died in a house fire. We come across Melissa playing piano. She's having some kind of identity crisis, claiming her name is now Eve. Eve mutates into a form more fitting of her character. Just a reminder that Rule 34 is a thing. I don't know what kind of fetish has developed from this, and I plan to keep it that way. Following Eve down the sewers, we fight a giant alligator that shoots lightning and eventually find our way outside. A reporter berates Aya with questions, mentioning that she is the sole survivor of the incident. But then, our cop partner Daniel punches the reporter in the face. I like this guy. Probably unprovoked assault, but he does it old school. Okay, the sooner I get this out of the way, the better. You might be wondering about the supernatural abilities and how they work. To explain, I, a plebeian, am going to try and paraphrase some biology I read on Wikipedia, so bear with me. You better get used to this word. Mitochondria, known as the powerhouse of the cell, is responsible for providing the overwhelming majority of your body's energy. The game even claims mitochondria can discharge 200,000 volts of electricity. Mitochondria are actually their own organisms with their own genetic code and the ability to evolve and multiply. The mitochondria within Melissa have rebelled, taking control of her body and creating a new consciousness known as Eve. Aya also has awakened mitochondria within her, allowing her to use magic in the game. The next day, that's Christmas for those of you counting, Aya and Daniel head off to the Museum of Natural History looking for a Dr. Hans Clamp, as he seems to be the local expert on, you guessed it, mitochondria. Dr. Clamp gives us a good old late 90s JRPG sized info dump, where the word of the day seems to be thrown around like a volleyball. After Aya mentions the suspect's name is Eve, Dr. Clamp seems surprised and stops answering questions. Later that evening, Aya and the gang find out Eve is in Central Park where Melissa's concert is planned. Even though it's been cancelled, people are still gathering. Daniel remembers his son Ben and ex-wife Lorraine are attending. Deja vu, I've just been in this place before, higher on the street. Arriving at Central Park, we can see Eve's fingerprints of mutated animals and burnt corpses. Now if you plan to ever play this game, here's a tip from your boy Pleb. The key is in the drawer! Don't do what I did and walk around for an hour and a half before you eventually eat your pride and look it up, only to realise you'd already clicked that spot like 10 times. The hitboxes suck. Oh yeah, definitely the hitbox's fault. Moving on, Aya finds Eve at the auditorium just in time to see her turn the audience into a massive orange slime. After a short pursuit, Eve invites Aya to be a passenger in a horse and cart. Well, it's obviously a trap, so what are you doing, Aya? Eve ignites the horse and a boss battle ensues. Wouldn't the body of the horse essentially be charcoal after like a minute? Even if it was being mind-controlled or zombified, the body simply wouldn't have enough strength to tow its carriage.
It's the mitochondria!
Of course, the mitochondria. Why didn't I think of that? After the battle, Aya is knocked unconscious. Daniel, who is waiting on the outskirts of Central Park, finds his man-child of a son, Ben, escape the orange goo fate, as he was on the loo. The same can't be said about his ex-wife Lorraine, but Daniel doesn't seem too disheartened. We learn that Manhattan is being evacuated, but a small Japanese man known as Kunihiko Maeda, who happens to be an expert in mitochondria, has snuck into the quarantine zone. Aya awakens in an apartment with Maeda and Daniel by her side. Who has a barrel of fire inside their apartment? Is this a New York thing? Maeda then explains the events of the book that the game is a sequel to. By the way, I might have a review of the movie in the near future, so subscribe if you want to see that, or just sub anyway because, you know, help a brother out. Okay, a novel summary as quick as possible. There was a car accident where a scientist's wife was on the verge of death. The scientist tried to culture her liver cells in order to keep his wife alive. The liver cells multiplied and mitochondria eventually took over her physical body. As his wife was registered to have her organs donated, her kidneys were transplanted into a little girl. Once the mitochondria had fully taken over his wife's body, Eve had awakened. Eve raped the scientist in an attempt to use his sperm to give birth to an ultimate being. Eve then transplanted the fertilized egg into the young girl who receives her kidney, giving birth to the ultimate being. But the ultimate being ultimately dies. Humanity saved, yada yada. Aya, Daniel and Maeda head back to Dr. Hans Clamp's lab at the museum. Maeda found some orange goo on Aya's clothing. He uses the museum's microscope, one clearly powerful enough to see DNA, to examine the goo and compare it to Aya's cells. Surprise, surprise, her mitochondria, rather than attacking her cells, are protecting them. Dr. Hans Clamp walks in, and Barrett then discovers a strange list with Marlene's name on it and has a characteristic outrage. Anyway, Dr. Clamp asks the gang... Did I just say Barrett and Marlene? You know what I mean. Dr. Clamp asks the gang to leave. Well, he is clearly suspicious and in a quarantine zone, but I wouldn't want to be rude. We head back to the station to find the place trashed, assumingly by Eve. A couple of minor characters die and we have to protect Daniel's son from a mutated police dog. Alright, I've been putting it off, but let's talk about the combat in the game. Parasite Eve basically uses Final Fantasy's active time battle system, but the twist is you have the ability to move Aya between turns. Great Scott, they did it! They created a hybrid between turn-based and real-time combat that isn't a clusterfuck and is actually fun! You would think the fact that you can only control one character would make the game a bit boring. But I found the action never gets dull and the strategy to be surprisingly deep. Aya has a PE, Parasite energy bar, that recharges while in a fight. The most useful abilities were definitely haste, healing magic, and another ability I'll talk about later. You can also use status healing items not only to heal negative status effects, but also protect you from them. Another small system that adds a surprising amount of strategy to the game. On the flip side, having the ability to grind up to face your challenges really does take some of the fear out of the game, as does pauses mid-battle from the kinda turn-based gameplay. Honestly, I was shocked by how much I enjoyed the combat. It's so simple. Just having to dodge and change your strategic position between turns adds so much excitement to the ATB system. In terms of customization, Aya receives bonus points when gaining a level. You can spend these points on upgrades to her inventory size, attack speed, and guns. The gun customization revolves around using what's known as tools to transfer abilities and stats from weapon to weapon. I would highly recommend getting to grips with this system as quickly as possible. The menu system is quite unintuitive, and I ended up accidentally throwing out all my banked up upgrades about 3/4 of the way through the game. In fact, I finished the game with a vanilla gun, somehow, despite the game throwing upgrades at me left, right and centre. You know, sometimes I wonder if I'm mentally impaired but no one's told me, like everyone knows about it but me. Kinda like the Truman Show. Back to the story. Aya and Maeda head to St. Francis Hospital. They theorize that Eve is probably looking for some sperm to give birth to the ultimate being. Sperm. Aya recognizes the hospital. She has been having flashbacks to it all game, so this is no surprise. She immediately goes to the basement, as surely nothing bad will happen. Oh, Eve turned out the power and destroyed the stairs. Fantastic. Just a side note, this area has some of the most horrific monster designs in the game.
They're called neo-mitochondrian creatures or NMCs.
Of course. Anyway, look at these designs. We have Flyman, Ratman, and the most horrifying Mixed Man, who shoots brains at you, and that's just at the hospital. Well, of course, a lot of the designs play it by the book. The majority are unique and memorable, something that can't be taken for granted. In fact, let's talk about the overall atmosphere of the game. The music was good. It creates a unique, chilling atmosphere by somehow combining opera singing, instrumental piano, and electronica. But a lot of the time, the music was just, well, there. It didn't often catch my attention. While playing games with what I would consider excellent soundtracks, I often stopped just to appreciate the music. I don't recall doing that once in Parasite Eve. Look, I didn't hate the music. It was good. Great even. But I don't think it stands up on its own. Often I'll listen to video game music on YouTube, and I just can't see myself revisiting this soundtrack anytime soon. Personally, I think the visuals hold up well. The game has certainly held up better than other games of the era, but let's be real here. The game doesn't hold a candle to the graphics of today. I showed my housemate, and in his very blunt observation, he said, quote, "It looks like shit." While I love the old school graphics, a HD remake would be fucking cool to say the least. As for the horror in the game, I must say it takes a different approach. Unlike, say, Resident Evil or Silent Hill, the game's areas are often brightly lit and jump scares are almost non-existent. Rather, the game uses body horror to unsettle and disgust the player, often with glorious pre-rendered cutscenes. This artistic choice makes the game more accessible but a little lacking in tension compared to the aforementioned games. In saying that, it's also a buddy cop adventure. Checkmate, Silent Hill. Back to the story. Someone's raided this literal bucket of jizz. A document, obviously covered in jizz. Artificial jizz. Dr. Hans Clamp. So the game has a bit of a twist here, but it's kinda complicated. Up until this point, the game has shown the ghost of a little girl that resembles Aya several times. This is Aya's twin sister, Maya. I know, what creative names for a set of twins. Maya seems to have inherited Eve from her mother, Mariko. Do you remember the young girl who received the original Eve's kidney and was impregnated with the ultimate being? Yeah, that's Aya's mum. Maya and Mariko died in a car accident 20 years before the events of the game. Maya's kidney was donated to the opera singer Melissa Pierce, and her cornea given to Aya. Melissa was taking immunosuppressant drugs to stop her body from rejecting Maya's kidney, and with the advice from Dr. Clamp was taking excessive amounts. Clamp and Melissa were meeting up when Eve was the dominant personality prior to the events of the game. They made a plan to create the ultimate being using artificial sperm, as human sperm is what caused the ultimate being to fail the first time. Anyway, so Eve seems to have sucked up more jizz than Brazer's girl, but don't worry, the military might actually be useful in a video game for once. Oh, never mind. This cutscene comes straight after probably the hardest boss fight in the game thus far. Well, for me at least. I got a sense of relief after multiple attempts to beat the boss. What's this, the plane's coming to... Oh my... To be honest, I love it when a game pulls a Swiftie on ya. It's something a lot of modern games lack and adds tension to the game. What? Dr. Clamp was actually evil? No way! After a trip through the most tedious dungeon in the game, the sewers, we find the orange blob from Central Park heading towards the museum. From the worst dungeon to the best. This place is absolutely killer. It even has fun little quizzes throughout. But the crown jewel has to be the dinosaurs. So ancient fossils can come back to life. That's a bit of a stretch. Surely any cells within the bones died millions of years ago.
But the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell!
Oh, I forgot about the mitochondria. They don't often use that as a plot device. I should have known. We find Dr. Clamp. After a little chat, Clamp asks Eve to kill him and she happily obliged. Speaking of Eve, she's now preggers surrounded by vein vine things and she now has multiple limbs and boob lumps. Eve escapes and uses the orange goo to form some kind of shield. impenetrable even to missiles. The military realise the inefficiency of their attack and decide to send Aya in, given she doesn't burn up when approaching Eve. Aya's attack brings down Godzilla, but it destroys the Statue of Liberty during its descent. Aya doesn't hesitate, jumping out of the helicopter to shoot that prick Eve in the face. Around this point in the game, Aya unlocks the ability Liberate, which is basically Super Saiyan but more American. This ability destroys both of Eve's forms in like one hit. Yeah, Eve has another form, how shocking. So that's it, we defeated the perfect form, right? Game of, oh, what's that? You only defeated the uterus, and now a demon baby is destroying a naval fleet with just its cry. Well, shit, eh? Wait, how does that even... Mitochondria! Okay, I get it. As the UB baby boards Aya's ship, Maeda tries to give Aya a good luck charm, but is stopped by Daniel. He's given Aya several of these throughout the game. They are thought to be useless and take up valuable inventory space. As the code for the game is quite complex, even today we don't know for sure if the charms do anything. Apparently some people still hold on to the items just in case. Perhaps a clever commentary on superstition. This fight. The UB starts off as a baby and goes through 4 forms. Baby, child, adolescent who has some big old nuts, and finally adult. Once again, Liberate is your best friend. While it won't one-hit kill any of the forms except Baby, it still deals a massive amount of damage and was the core to my strategy in the fight, given I had no gun upgrades. While the battle was a tough fight, I beat it after about 5 or so attempts, and the UB reaches his final form. Aya's weapon does nothing for the UB. With things looking dire, Maeda tells Daniel that what he was trying to hand Aya wasn't a good luck charm, but rather bullets with Aya's cells in them. Daniel then shows why he is the MVP of the game, jumping out of a helicopter while on fire to give Aya her 11th hour superpower. Aya then obliterates the ultimate being, so good game I guess. Oh my god! I think I might be traumatized from this next part of the game. Oh, you know how I said it took me 5 attempts to beat the boss? Well, that's partly true. You see, the boss isn't over. See that slow-moving phallic ball of death chasing Eve? Well, if he touches you, game over. Do the whole 10-minute boss fight again. This is no shit the scariest part of the game. The music that gradually gets faster is triggering my PTSD just listening back to it. I think I died here 5 more times. See that save point? Don't even think about it. It doesn't work. Dead. On your way out, you need to press a button causing the boat to explode. If you miss this, dead. Wrong turn, dead. Weird change of angle because of the pre-rendered backgrounds, dead. Frustrating as this ending is, I think it's one of the best parts of the game. True horror has consequences, and knowing that I'd have to beat the 4-stage boss all over again if I make one stupid little mistake had me sweating bricks. The final boss is defeated with a fitting explosion. Aya finds Daniel, without a scratch mind you, and Maeda at the docks. Someone at Square must have realised that there's no real message or moral behind all the cool explosions and dinosaurs. So they have Maeda give a slapped-on misanthropic environmentalism speech at the end. He says, I wonder if this is a message to all mankind. If the Earth is a single human being, we humans that invade the Earth become like viruses out of control. We, in essence, are upsetting the natural balance of the body. This is definitely utter destruction. You see, humans are, in essence, parasites. You can say that we're parasites and the world is our host. Thanks for bringing everyone down, Maeda. We end the story with a nice bookend. Back at the opera, Aya, Daniel, Ben and Maeda watch the same play from the start of the game. Obviously watching a whole room of people burn to death didn't affect Aya too bad. Everything seems to be going swimmingly, no spontaneous This ending seems to be left ambiguous, but I won't elaborate on it until I cover the second ending.
What? A second ending?
Yes. Mind you, I looked this ending up on YouTube as I'd have to play through a new game plus and tackle the infamous 77-story Chrysler building. Given my plan to play back catalogue, aka pile of shame is around that number, I generally avoid post-game content. On the top floor of the Chrysler building, we find Maya, Aya's sister, or as she calls herself, Truebred Eve. She was created from Dr. Clamp cultivating Maya's cells from Melissa's kidney. Truebred Eve served as a backup plan in case Melissa failed to birth the ultimate being. After the fight, Eve tries to take over Aya's body but fails. Eve is finally defeated, but Aya's magical mitochondrial powers are no more. While this is considered the canon ending, the sequel shows that Aya very much still has magic powers. It's highly speculated that this is due to there originally being no sequels planned. So Eve's dead. Happy ending, right? But what about the first ending with the glowy red eyes? It's not concrete, but a popular theory is that Aya's mitochondria is resonating with everyone else's in the theatre, similar to what Eve did at the beginning of the game. As we know, Aya's mitochondria is for all intents and purposes good, so essentially she would be upgrading or evolving mankind's mitochondria to be able to deal with a future attack from Eve. Or you could say Eve possessed Aya and brought forth the apocalypse. Actually, if you think about it, according to Maeda's little spiel at the end, humans really are the parasites of the world, so ultimately this would be the good ending, human extinction. Anyway, that's the end of my review, and I'll say this much. Parasite Eve isn't a survival horror game. It is most certainly a horror game, but unlike, say, Resident Evil, you never really feel like you're struggling to survive. Sure, the limited inventory space makes it so you can't hoard, say, cure potions, but you can cure yourself with magic practically whenever you want. Not to mention how fruitful ammo is in the game. I didn't feel like I was going to run out once. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, however. I'm a huge pussy and I don't often delve into the world of horror, but I'm fascinated by seeing the boundaries of how disturbing something can be within fiction. While Parasite Eve does not reach the levels of mindfuckery in games like, say, Drakengard, it certainly has some interesting art I can experience without triggering my fight or flight response. A lot of the game felt more akin to a buddy cop adventure, with a very likeable cast of characters, decent action scenes, and a cheesy plot that's good for a chuckle. The pacing is excellent, despite a few exposition dumps and the relatively short length of about 10 hours. It's a welcome change to the typically epic length of RPGs. But the ultimate question remains, do I recommend you play Parasite Eve? Well, that kinda depends. If you feel like a trip back to 1997 or love 90s Squaresoft games, or even if you're just intrigued by the strange premise, it's probably worth it. But considering how many excellent games are around these days for cheap, I don't think playing the game should be too high on the casual gamer's priority list. Mind you, Parasite Eve is most certainly a unique experience. With a new coat of paint, I think it would be a must-play. But I don't think its place in history is wrong. It's by no means flawless, but certainly an unforgettable experience. The cinematic direction is ahead of its time, and I can see why some call it a bit of a cult classic. Perhaps if the game had a similar scope to its Final Fantasy relatives, it could have reached greater heights. But I shall remember it as that strange little game that came out between Final Fantasy 7 and 8, and not too much more. But what do I know, I'm just some internet pleb. Mitochondria! 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 Mitochondria.